everyone, welcome. I am Rebecca Stone. I head up marketing for Cisco Networking, and I am here to talk to you about unified experiences. And really, I am so excited because in a few moments, we're going to be joined by a few of our customers who are really going to talk about how they're delivering those experiences to their end users, how those experiences are driving differentiation for their businesses. And that's what we mean by a unified experience. It's an experience that a customer, an end user, a teacher in a school has so that they don't even have to think about the connectivity. They don't even have to think about the surprise and delight of being able to experience something in a digital environment. It just happens. It happens like it is on the slide. Unfortunately, for many of you in the room who are the engineers behind those architectures and those experiences, it is incredibly complex, as you know. There are many, many hops, skips, and jumps that you have to take to ensure that that experience happens seamlessly. And that complexity has made it complicated for you to build, it has made it complicated for you to maintain, and it's making you it's made it complicated for you to ensure that you can see across the entire experience to understand what's going on and troubleshoot it. That complexity is only increased by the fact that you think about the security breaches that could potentially happen in all those different hops, skips, and jumps. That's where the power of Cisco Networking Cloud comes in. You heard Jonathan speak about it yesterday in the keynote. Hopefully you've heard about it in a number of your sessions before today. But it's really about how we pull together all of the different components of the network to ensure that your wireless, your switching, your SD-WAN, and beyond are really going to be connected in a unified way so that it becomes easier to automate, to do the work from a security perspective to deliver those experiences that your customers are asking for. And so without further delay, I am excited to introduce our first speaker, Javier, who is from Roche. Javier, why don't you come up and join me on stage? Thank you. It is so nice for you to be here. Please take a seat. Javier, why don't you start off by introducing yourself and talk a little bit about your role?
Okay, so I'm an enterprise architect at Roche within the informatics organization of Roche. Roche is a company that creates medicines, diagnostics, and also healthcare data insight platforms to help patients have better lives, mainly. No? As an enterprise architect in Roche Informatics, my role is to help the business with the technology transformations and architectural strategies that are needed to support what's needed in the business, no? And what the patients will need in the future.
And you are really in the midst of a shift in your networking strategy, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, because in the last years, the pace of innovation has changed a lot. The needs from the business, we are leaders in personalized healthcare, which means also we have to produce, generate, move, and compute large amount of data. And also we have a lot of collaborations that other companies, that put a lot of pressure in the network in the last years. No?
Yep. So as you're working on this network strategy, you are dealing with a diverse set of customers that might have different needs. So why don't you share a little bit about that and those different experiences that you're having to manage for?
Yeah, I think like in probably many large enterprises, we have different customer profiles. And when we were thinking about evolving our technology strategy for connectivity, we thought, okay, I think it's best to start with the customers. What are really the customer needs? And as we are an infrastructure platform, we need to anticipate to their needs. It's not only what they need today, but what they may need in the future. No? And they don't need the same. They have different needs. Now you have hybrid office users that in the last years we have seen that change a lot the way they work. We call them hybrid because in fact they can be working at home or in the office and they are expecting a seamless experience no matter where they are. They consume a lot of software as a service cloud applications, so probably internet is the network for them, most of the cases. But we have other type of groups like research and early development, and these people really need a lot of flexibility to connect things to our network, need a huge amount of performance, capacity, and if they have any hypothesis that they would like to test, they may need to move a large amount of data from here to there to the cloud to on-prem and compute it in high-performance computing environments. Now that's a completely different need for that customer profiles. Then we have seen in the last years a lot of changes in IoT with the proliferation of IoT devices and also OT that used to be more isolated environments, and now they need to use the network to connect to the cloud, to do analytics and things like that. So that's a lot of change also in the network and how to introduce new protocols, new technologies, or new architectures from the network. And the last one would be infrastructure teams. Now we are moving more on consuming infrastructure as it is consuming the cloud providers, which means we need to automate a lot and we need to promote things as self-services first. And that's also changing the way we provide services, especially in data center, cloud, this type of environments.
So there's, I guess how you can think about it is for some of your employees, your customers, as you refer to them, some of the things have changed dramatically because of COVID. Like everybody went home and there's a lot more hybrid work. And some of the things like your R&D has stayed somewhat the same, but all of those are being really pushed forward by a need for more digital, of a digital experience, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and so when you as networking and IT ops are sort of thinking about those different models for how you are addressing your customers, how are you doing that? How are you meeting the needs of your business?
So one of the things that we consider is that we need to move our mindset from managing components to really manage platforms and treat them as products.
Yeah.
So we can shift the focus more to what are the customer needs and less to maintaining life cycle of infrastructure codes and things like that. So one of the challenges is that we have different customer needs.
Yep.
That is difficult to harmonize. So we need a very stable and robust code, but we need to be able to provide services on top in a much faster way. No?
Yeah.
So we are approaching it in that kind of platform concept. And we'll see in the next slide probably, this one. So for that platform, we think there are 4 areas that we have to focus a lot on in order to get there. No? One is automation and self-services, because if you look at platforms, you need to consume them in a self-service way, and for that, you need to automate a lot of the processes, components, and things like that happen inside. For that, it's not only about technologies, it's technologies, it's skills, it's processes, and we are adopting things like DevOps practices, or DevNevops.
Yep.
Sometimes we call it net DevOps, sorry. And that takes time, but that helps us a lot to do things that we couldn't do easily in the past. No? We have good teams focused on that automation. We also have platforms at the DNA Center that help us to abstract some of the complexity of the infrastructure. In optimization and visibility, is super important for us to continue optimize the infrastructure. It's not only about adding new things, but also removing the complexity that is not needed. And in order to optimize, we really need to see what's happening. And for that, observability, network observability is also key. And we are heavy users, for example, or products like ThousandEyes there that really help us to understand what's happening and sometimes even tell in a proactive manner other teams that where the problem may be. No?
Yeah.
In terms of flexibility, that's another area for us that is super important because we need that stable core and then we need to have flexible services on top. Technologies like Catalyst SD-WAN is helping us in the wireless space, but also other things like moving to abstraction of the virtual segments in the campuses with EVP and VXLAN. Those are things that we are pushing for because we think it will help us for the future to have that flexibility. No? And the last one I think is obvious for everybody. You cannot provide a connectivity service if you don't have security integrated in it. No? So here we have things like access control, segmentation, and also we're trying to support a lot the security teams moving the security perimeter to context and identity. That we think is really key to simplify that.
I think it's great that you are really taking a completely different approach. I'm going to throw a question that's not in one of the things that we researched and talked about, but how is that helping to change, or how are you thinking about employee skill sets for your team and how that might change because of the new direction that you're taking?
Sorry, how it would change? Sorry.
Yeah.
For employees or
for your employees that are thinking about this new platform approach to networking?
Yeah, so I think for our employees, we are developing new skills like in automation and self-services. Yeah. We need to be closer also to the business and understand their needs and help them to understand what are the possibilities to do some of the transformations we have to do. And we need a very stable core. So what we need to do is that the core is really harmonized, the quality of the software is very good because that helps us to shift the focus and move our focus more to the customer needs and less to maintaining our critical incidents and things like that. Yeah. No? AI, some of the tools will help us with that, but it's more augmentation of what we can do.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate the time. I have shared with a few of you in the audience that I had the pleasure of joining you at Roche a few months ago, and I just really think the transformation has been pretty impressive, and the way that you talk about it has been great. So I really appreciate it you sharing with the audience today. So thank you so much. Thanks for coming. And then next up on stage, I am happy to welcome Ed Green from McLaren. Ed,
hey.
Good to see you.
See you.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
All right, why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your role?
Yeah, so I'm head of commercial technology at McLaren Racing, and like everyone in a race team, I get to wear a couple of hats. My first hat is looking at our strategy, roadmap, and architecture across all of our racing series, from F1 to FE to esports and beyond. And then the second part of my role is to work and find partners that want to work with us and help us go as quickly as possible out on the racetrack. And you guys have been doing that now with us for almost like 2 years now.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a fun role.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going with you to a race. It was pretty amazing, and it really opened my eyes. I had heard you speak, but actually being on the track and seeing the amount of complexity and work that you have to deal with and think about on a regular basis is pretty awe-inspiring. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about, hey, race day is coming, we're a week away, what do we have to do to get ready?
So it starts on the Wednesday ahead of a Grand Prix. We roll in our IT data center. So we have a traveling mobile data center on wheels, which is kind of a bit weird and a bit unique. And that rolls into the garage and it connects up our pit wall, our engineering island, the telemetry servers either side of the car, as well as all the compute and infrastructure inside that mobile data center. And the reason we take that with us is to compute all the telemetry coming from the cars every single weekend. And we're building out our CEO's office, we're building out rapid prototyping in the back of the garage, and we've got all of this infrastructure to connect up. But the reason we also take the rig is then to take all the data coming from the cars, and last season that was just shy of 12 billion data points throughout 23 races. And
including on the driver, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, anything we can measure, we will.
Yeah.
And so all of that data that's captured at the track, and then we relay that back to mission control in Woking, which is a sort of Apollo-style, NASA-inspired way of helping us add decision-making to the race. And so if any of you watch an F1 race and you see the drivers come into the pit lane, that decision is started back in Woking in England, and that's the reason the networking is so important for us in this place. But the garage isn't, the garage isn't like this. The garage isn't this like lovely green controlled office. When you joined us, it was like 40 degrees in the back of the garage. Humidity was up at 90%. It's everywhere you shouldn't build and run a data center. And we need the performance. We need the latest switches. So we're pushing our poor 9300s to the edge, and your team's very helpful, helping us with warranties and looking at what we're doing, but also understanding how those switches are performing in these sort of weird and extreme environments.
Yeah, I mean, one of the cool just little tidbits that I thought was like, you're literally measuring like cycles of sleep for the drivers and for all of the pit crew and everything to make sure that you're understanding like what is the best time for them to go to sleep so that they're going to have optimum race day the next day. So it's pretty amazing when you think about the amount of data that you're having to really pull back and send to the offices. So.
We try and stick to it as best we can.
And I think just to paint a little bit of a picture for everyone too, when you think about it is just a cement hole, and it is really nothing when you are starting on day one, and then you get just this tiny little space to work in, because obviously most of the space needs to be for the cars.
And
so
we're running in about 1.5 kilometers of fiber, 3 kilometers of copper, and some things we don't normally think about, but every time we take the rack off the lorry and we power up our data center, we've got to make sure it's the same switch. No one's tampered with it in motion. We've not had any sort of security breaches. We travel to all sorts of different regions around the world, and so things like secure boot, although you wouldn't think about that all the time, for us those things are important, and we do use them pretty much every week when we're racing. Yeah.
So why don't we talk a little bit more about security? It's not just about at the race, but obviously the data that's sent back to the office, as well as the office, your security for all of your employees, including your drivers. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest, we don't really go and try and hack each other. That's a bad idea. And there's financial penalties, which are not a good idea to sort of try and take each other's data or designs. But what we do see is a huge amount of IP loss from people. And so actually understanding how, if someone moves to another race team, we have people policies to help with that, and quite long gardening leaves. What we really want to understand is where the data is going east to west across the building. So some of the visibility you're giving us through the network is helping us to understand exactly where the data is going, who's accessing which systems at the right time, and then all that sort of physical security as well. Is my phone near the right access point, near where my laptop's connected? If I'm doing MFA, just the levels of security and insight you can give us. It's not too dissimilar to telemetry we get from the cars. There's the stuff you want to react to live in real time if you see the engine's getting a bit too hot. But there's other data sets that you'll look to optimize and improve performance as well. So I think it's nice that both teams sort of share that culture.
Great. And last, you talked a little bit about visibility. It's not just about visibility for security purposes, but one of the things that I love, and I see some of the Thousand Eyes team and in the audience, is you literally walk around with Thousand Eyes on your phone for the entire race, just like they're like basically watching it instead of the race. So why don't you share a little bit about how important that visibility and assurance is for you?
I mean, I encourage everyone to watch the race. It is really exciting. But for me, we put Thousand Eyes across our trackside and HQ environment in about 2 days. We did it ahead of the Montreal Grand Prix. We had a very short change freeze window, and we started by putting it on a couple of engineers' workstations on the pit wall, and then between sessions we expanded that. And what it helps you see is during the race, you'll know if someone's about to have an issue. The worst is when you get someone lights up on the IT channel on the radio at track and they say, hey, the telemetry's not looking quite right. When you're in the moment and you're racing, all of that matters. With Thousand Eyes, we go really clear view of exactly what's happening. Is it a database issue? Is it network? Is there latency? Every racetrack we go to, we're taking 100 meg of MPLS circuit. So we don't have huge amounts of bandwidth because it's very expensive to pop it up for, I'm asking for an internet connection in 24 locations. And I expect about a 1 minute SLA. So it's really expensive, and having that insight means that you're not fearful when the engineer presses the button and says, hey, this doesn't look quite right. You can understand the differences. We can also start to surface some of that information to the engineers sat in this building in Woking. And it means they know what their colleagues on the pit wall are having to deal with as well. So just giving people that visibility, that insight, being quite transparent with it, much in the same way you guys have been across the security world, is really important. And then at this place as well, we're just going to a brand new network. We're putting in an entirely new 6E, 100 gig to the access layer, seeing as fast as we can possibly go. And now knowing that we can get Thousand Eyes on the switch and seeing exactly what's happening, that gives our team a lot of confidence and we can respond quickly.
Okay, last question is just, what are some of the things that you see coming for how your partnership with Cisco is going, and some of the exciting things about Cisco Networking Cloud?
So for us, Networking Cloud, full upgrade at the office is exciting. We've got a full platform approach, so we use Meraki to deal with our guest traffic at the racetracks. We use Meraki in the garage to provide our team and engineers. But back here at the office, being able to take your foot off and no quos policies and just go as fast as we can across the network. That means that engineers won't have to think or be concerned. We know what they're doing. They're staying on our network, and we're going to give them every bit of resource they need to go design the fastest possible car. And then just I think the constant iterations that your teams are pushing for us, that's exciting. So it sort of moves away from these big lumpy drops, and now we're moving into this sort of constant evolution. And if you look at the F1 car, if we launched a car, much in the same way as you launch a product, and we didn't touch it for a season, even if we won the first race, we'd be at the back of the field by the end of the season. So it's fair to say if you don't innovate, you're going backwards. And I think that's sort of a shared DNA between the two of us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ed. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I was telling Ed, he definitely has converted me to be an F1 fan with McLaren. So thanks, Ed. Last but not least, Sanwar, I would like to welcome you on stage. Sanwar is from BT, and he's going to talk a little bit about sustainability initiatives with BT. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
Absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind just, again, starting off by introducing yourself and your role with BT.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sarwar Khan, I'm the Global Head of Sustainability for Business at BT. My role is made up of two components, really. So one is to embed sustainability by design into our core products, including our network products. And the second is to help our customers leverage our technology, some of which is built on Cisco, to help our customers achieve their own sustainability ambitions.
Great. And one of the things that I was talking to Colin, another one of your colleagues, a few months ago, and he was telling me about some of the initiatives that you have done for your own infrastructure before even you're thinking about your customers. So would you mind starting off with that and some of the challenges that you were seeing and some of the upgrades that you went through over and are continuing to go through over the next few months?
Yeah, absolutely. So very recently we launched Global Fabric. Global Fabric is our new international network for connectivity. It's built to help customers innovate at pace. We use the 3 S's when we talk about Global Fabric, and that's secure multi-cloud connectivity at scale and at speed. Now, it's built on Cisco devices, so we use the NCS infrastructure, and we deliberated for a number of months in terms of specifically selecting the right devices and the right partner, and we did that on the basis of sustainability. So by leveraging the Cisco infrastructure within Global Fabric, we're able to reduce our energy consumption by approximately 78%. So effectively, we're able to do much more with less power.
Yep.
But the positive aspect of that actually is in terms of what does it mean for our customers? Because yes, BT deploys this network, we pay the energy bills, it's contributing to our ambitions. But actually, if you're a customer consuming network services, then our impact is your impact within the supply chain. So by being able to reduce the carbon footprint of Global Fabric by approximately 80%, our customers benefit by having a lower Scope 3 supply chain impact from BT.
Yeah, and I think what's great is, as a customer of Cisco, like, not only are you seeing the sustainability and impact of that reduced power and the carbon footprint, but also the fact that it's a cost. It's 78% is a pretty massive cost savings as well. So I think it's like it's good for the planet and it's good for the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
So as you started to do that upgrade, as you started to think about, hey, we've seen this benefit, we're going to pass it on to the customers. How are you doing that? What are some of the offerings that you have built in order to pass on to the customers?
Yeah, very good question. So I mean, the first thing is just thinking about what the network can enable. So one of the big things around Global Fabric is sovereignty. So we know customers have certain requirements when it comes to how the data is managed, where it resides. But alongside that, there are some geopolitical issues, and customers want to ensure that the traffic paths, the SLAs, etc., are maintained during these geopolitical challenges. So Global Fabric has the ability to route traffic to avoid some of these geopolitical challenges, but also to ensure data sovereignty is retained. So that's one aspect. Another area we're looking into is, coming back to sustainability, leveraging the data insights that we actually get from traffic coming through Global Fabric. We can build a deep understanding in terms of what is that data used for, is it critical, and look for routing in terms of the greenest path. So global networks, they'll operate in multi-regions, and every region has a different grid intensity factor, and that's a really important component to thinking around how you lower your carbon emissions as a customer. So by leveraging this capability within Global Fabric, we have the ability to help customers make choices, active choices, in terms of how they route their traffic and where they're routing it to remain that sovereignty, but also to be as sustainable as possible.
Yeah. And you're doing that all via an SDA, a software-defined architecture, is that correct?
Yes. So we have a Global Fabric application or a customer portal where customers can log in and make changes to their service in hours, not in weeks like network services used to operate. But alongside that, we also have the ability to enable customers to leverage APIs as a way of configuring their network as they would like, best for their applications and best for their organization and innovating at pace.
Yeah. We talked a little bit, not just about sustainability, but another very hot topic at Cisco Live this year is AI. So what are some of the ways that you are using your new network and your new approach and how you are approaching AI as infrastructure and how you're building it into some of your products, perhaps?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the example I gave there was around routing traffic. That's based on the data we collect within the network, and that delivers the outcomes when it comes to sovereignty and sustainability. So AI is a key enabler to us offering that to our customers. But in terms of where else we're leveraging AI, well, when it comes to developing networks in the customer environment, so when we're putting in LAN infrastructure or when we're putting in SD-WAN, we have the ability to look at how customers are using their network and the outcomes they want to achieve when it comes to sustainability. And we leverage AI as a way of helping organizations to make smarter decisions around when they turn devices on and off across their LAN infrastructure. That's a reduction in energy usage, carbon footprint, but also cost savings. I hear a lot from our customers that as part of their sustainability journey or decarbonization journey, they want to look at optimization in terms of their fleets, their supply chain, and their built environment. And in all of those examples, we're leveraging the capabilities of AI to help customers make smarter decisions around, let's say for fleet, idle modes, the best paths to travel that's the most sustainable in buildings. When do you need to have your heating and cooling running, and when should you not have your heating and cooling running?
Yeah.
And that comes from the ecosystem play, because we leverage capabilities like Cisco Spaces to understand occupancy, as an example. And then we leverage the wider ecosystem within Cisco to plug into building energy management systems and use the occupancy data as a way of helping customers optimize their built infrastructure for energy efficiency.
That's awesome. One of the questions that I'm hoping you can answer, which I asked to Javier as well, is how do you think that this is transforming the way that your employees, the ones who are helping to build and think about these services, how are their skill sets changing? What are you looking to transform within your own organization in order to address some of these needs?
Yeah, really good question. I think the first thing is purpose, instilling a sense of purpose within the, we call it the employee value proposition. Some others may call it the colleague value proposition. I think once you have that sense of purpose, which in our case, it's BT wants to connect for good, right?
Yeah.
That's our purpose. And sustainability is at the heart of that. So when we talk about embedding sustainability into the networks, that then becomes a core component of the employee value proposition. They are delivering an outcome for BT and an outcome for our customers that has meaning for the planet and for BT as a company. So that's the first thing. And then just talking about unified experiences, we've talked a lot about collaboration. We've talked a bit about security with Javier, but actually, how do you bring that together to create a seamless experience for our customers? We've always historically, from a networking perspective, talked about security. We've talked about resilience. All the key KPIs and SLA parameters that everyone cares about and expects from networks, but all of a sudden you've got an additional dimension, sustainability.
Yeah.
And with digital growth, with the explosion of Gen AI over the next few years, we're going to see an increase in compute power, we're going to see an increase in data centers. All of a sudden we can bridge that gap for customers between the key things that they relied on the network for with the new sustainability parameters. And that's a completely new dimension. It's something really exciting for our colleagues. And as I said, it instills purpose within our organization.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. It is a really great call, I think, to see BT driving towards this, and not only within their own infrastructure, but for their customers as well. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So Thank you all. I really appreciate you all joining us. I think the three big takeaways that we have to think about are, one, heard consistently pretty much, is a platform approach to how we are moving forward and preparing for the future of the network. The second is really that transformation of employees. And the third is that Cisco Networking Cloud and our approach helps to develop some of those core themes, inclusive of security, sustainability, and that platform approach. So if you would like to learn more and continue the conversation, please click the QR code. And we have a few sessions that are going to be available, and you can always check us out in the hub for more information. Thank you, everyone.